Hello and welcome to Anime Kiwi special number 6. Today we're going to be talking about Cat Soup, a 2001 experimental short film from Tatsuo Sato and Masaaki Yuasa.
I like the question mark at the end of that experimental.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I guess experimental really is the way to describe it, isn't it? It's 34 minutes of just kind of a lot of stuff happening that doesn't seem really joined together for the most part.
Yeah, the sense that I got from it is that there's an extremely loose kind of framework,
Yeah.
and but everything surrounding it was just kind of vignettes, I guess you'd call them.
Yeah. So this movie is based, or it's inspired by the work of a manga artist whose pen name translates to Cat Soup. Her real name was Chiyomi Hashiguchi. And this was kind of the style of her comics in general. Is very surreal. She committed suicide in 1998, and there's some works that kind of talk about how she got inspiration, and a lot of it was apparently based on dreams she had. So that's kind of why it's like this. And she was also really interested in surreal shit like this.
I kind of almost got the sense that they're trying to recreate what it feels like to go insane. It's one of the kind of strong feelings I got from it.
Yeah, a lot of the places I looked at this, as one of the genres, they just had dementia.
Yeah, everything's really disconnected, and like there are bits and pieces of things in there that make sense, but it's not really in any logical way. Like I picked up on some stuff. Obviously, water's a big thing because you can see the sister cat drowning at the start of the film.
That was the boy cat drowning at the start, I think.
Well, one of them. So you can see stuff like obviously that weird like giant bird thing.
Yeah.
And that being pulled to pieces and then creating a flood.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a boat that I guess you can call it an arkish sort of boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so kind of comes back to the last film that we well, not the last one before.
2 ago.
With Angel's Egg.
Yeah.
Which kind of, I mean, there is some religious symbolism in there as well. You can see that with, I didn't recognize the figure, but it looked religious to me towards the beginning of the film.
The godlike character who was doing smoke tricks?
Sorry?
The one who's doing smoke... Oh, you mean the thing who stole the sister's soul?
Yeah, I didn't recognize it, but I recognize it as kind of having a religiosity to it, so that's in my notes here.
That would be a bodhisattva who's known in Japan as Jizo.
I recognize that word from a song.
I recognize the name. I don't remember what his deal is.
Probably some kind of Anubis type figure.
Oh, okay. Jizo is also the guardian of children and the patron deity of deceased children and aborted fetuses in Japanese culture.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
It's kind of strange to have a deity specifically for aborted fetuses. Like, having that coded in the culture rather than, being ashamed of it.
It's weird. Buddhism's different. I've been reading a lot of early Buddhist stories and fables recently, and it's some weird shit. It's really interesting, but it's different.
Yeah, I know very little about Buddhism. All I know is that the Buddha figure was probably just a pretentious asshole.
It seems kind of like that in the stories.
Yeah, like the way that I had it told to me, it almost seems like what are they called? Like crust punks, I think.
Never heard that term before.
Supposedly, this is sort of an American idea. So, but the idea is that you have these punk type people that are actually like financially pretty well off.
Okay, yeah.
but they go and live like homeless people, but they've got something to fall back on whenever they want, you know?
Okay, I've heard of that. I didn't know there was a term for it, but I've heard of this thing happening.
Oh, yeah. So it seems like almost like Buddha is like the ancient form of crust punk.
Yeah.
You know, he can live comfortably trying to find enlightenment, but he's always got a fallback plan because he's relatively wealthy.
Yeah, he was the son of royalty.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's like the ultimate, like, oh, I can go and do this because I've got a safety net. It's like a real symbol of privilege, you know? Like, kind of, like, it's a dirty word today, but almost appropriating homelessness.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else I have to say to go off of that. I mean, it's interesting. Buddhism does have good stuff. I don't want to be seeming like I'm knocking Buddhism here, but
Oh, I'll knock Buddhism all I want. Well, I don't care about any religious beliefs or anything like that. Maybe that makes me an asshole.
maybe a little bit. But like you're an equal opportunities asshole at least.
Exactly. I mean, like, if somebody wants to shit on, like, atheist beliefs, I'll be right there with them.
But anyways, that was a Buddhist. That was a bodhisattva taking the sister away.
Yeah, I just got Buddhist symbols underlined and with a question mark because I didn't really recognize them.
Mm-hmm.
Something I thought was interesting is that a lot of the time the characters were speaking, but their voices were indistinct, like they were making squeaking noises and stuff like that.
I have written down my notes. This is basically if Animal Crossing got really dark.
Well,
because they sound like Animal Crossing voices half the time.
I thought there might have been some sort of significance to that because the voices are indistinct and squeaking and stuff like that, but then you've got points where they use speech bubbles.
Yeah.
Some of them weren't subtitled, so I wasn't able to read them, but
there wasn't really anything significant.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to replicate that whole thing, like when you walk past a group of people and you can hear them speaking, but you can't make out any of their conversation. You know, it just seems indistinct. Might have been something to that, but I thought there might have been something to the family as well, but that didn't seem to have any sort of significance.
I mean, I think it did in a larger sense, but I don't think them individually did.
Well, they go out of the way to frame the father on the ground with a bottle of vodka, so...
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, maybe there's going to be something with that, but it wasn't really followed up on.
Yeah, it didn't... Yeah, I think it was just kind of painting what was going on, why they didn't really notice that the son was drowning, I guess. Until he was kind of dead.
Yeah, I'm not really certain what exactly the drowning is supposed to indicate, because it seems like...
I think the point of that was to let him see kind of into the spirit world or afterlife, so he could see Jizo taking his sister away.
Oh, that would make sense, yeah, because he was fighting for his sister's soul, and then they split it in half.
And then Jizo turned it into a flower or something. His half.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the images are really scattered.
Yeah, it's real strange.
I'm not entirely sure whether or not I liked it, to be honest.
I think I liked it. It's not clear cut like Angel's Egg, where I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Angel's Egg will probably go down as one of my favorite art films of that type.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it just seems like...
I think there's a lot more to unpack here.
I'm not sure there is. Like, it seemed like a significant portion of the film was surrealism for surrealism's sake. I mean, I like that stuff.
And I think I've read that is the case. That a lot of the imagery in here is just because they thought it looked cool.
Which I'm cool with, but yeah. I tend to think, like, if you're going to do something like that, then... I mean, it's hard to kind of think of a better way to frame this stuff, because it's framed almost like, you know, this film's going to tell a story, and it kind of doesn't. And I'm not going to knock the film for that, but I just feel like this style of surrealism could be framed in a better way, and I'm not entirely sure what that way is.
I mean, on the other hand, it's really short. It's only 34 minutes. So it's not like you're wasting a bunch of time with the just kind of random pieces it's thrown at you. And they're pretty cool to look at.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that anybody that likes like surrealist, imagery, without necessarily needing like a story or something to emotionally anchor to, kind of like Angel's Egg had that stuff, and this one kind of doesn't.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, if you like that stuff,
there's a very loose through line that maybe the middle's a bit translucent, but
yeah, it kind of jumps from symbol to symbol, and then you see like little, they almost drop in scenes in there that are almost relatable. Like there'll be random scenes in there that are like, for example, one of the cats taking that fish that was on the shore and like taking out the eyeball and eating it,
mm-hmm.
and then being like told off by one of the parents and dragged off. Like that's kind of a relatable scene, but it's just dropped in there randomly, and it's kind of like, as I was saying, like there has to be a better framework to present this style of surrealism. I don't feel like it really fits the way it works now.
Okay, I think you have a point. I think it'd be more important if it was going for like a longer thing, but
yeah, definitely.
It definitely is an argument that holds water, even with this short runtime.
I guess experimental definitely is a good way to describe it, because even if it doesn't necessarily work, that's the whole point of experimental films. You just try something and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm. And there's some things that stick, I thought. Like the whole thing leading up to the BDSM cat soup, this is where the title comes from thing, is basically a Hansel and Gretel vignette thing.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
There is some parts in here that I would describe as kind of messed up too.
Yeah, it was really graphic.
In some spots, yeah.
Yeah. The whole circus thing was very, I don't know if gory is the right way to put it, but...
Oh, it's gory, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of viscera.
It doesn't necessarily come out of nowhere, because this style of surrealism has that shit all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I was expecting something like this to happen randomly in the movie.
I wasn't.
And
it was very surprising.
No, like when you go to an art gallery or something, and you go to the surrealist sections or whatever, depending on how your gallery sort of sections that stuff off,
mm-hmm.
like there's almost always some really like confrontingly graphic, like viscera or like sexual imagery or something.
Yeah, and there's plenty of that in here.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a weird poop montage that I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but it was a significant portion of the movie.
You mean like with the fish coming up to eat the shit as it comes out of the cat?
And then there's...
into the water?
But then it was... After that, there's a little montage where there's things pooping and begetting other things, leading up to a tree dropping some stuff off it.
Yeah, I guess you'd call that recursive, I guess you'd call it.
Kind of, yeah.
Like a weird recursive imagery. Like, I guess if you think
kind of as maybe a circle of life type thing, I guess.
Yeah, you think of the shit as fertilizer, and then it kind of works.
Yeah. And I guess the whole movie kind of had a circle of life type vibe to it, in a sense.
Oh, this movie's completely obsessed with death.
Yeah.
That's kind of what everything about it is permeated by that ideas of death and everything.
And like I said before, it was based off of Nekojiru's work, and she was manic depressive, and she was apparently recorded as saying that she doesn't fear death at all, and she was fascinated by it. It was a recurring theme in her comics.
Yep, suicidal ideation they call that. I've not seen any of her work, so
I haven't either.
I mean,
this is just from my research I did before the episode.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that I may be completely wrong, but I'd have to look up some of her work, because this is sort of interesting, but
mm-hmm.
I'm curious whether or not this is like the filmic version of her work, and whether or not they were like homaging her work instead of just influenced by it, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious too. Maybe I'll have to go back and read some of it. Maybe if somebody listening has a comment, they can do it on the YouTube or send it in to us somehow. Twitter, I don't know. I'd like to know.
Do they ever have comments?
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, maybe we'll save that for the end. Find some comments to read.
I mean, it's not on this one. They haven't, because I didn't say we were watching this one.
Well,
But...
I meant older episodes.
Oh yeah. I've done it before.
Wait, let's see here. Have I got any other stuff in my notes that I've missed? Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up? Because I reckon we shouldn't go on too long, because like it's a fairly short film. We don't want to talk for longer than their movie is.
Yeah, I mean, I found some like broader like themes, messages that I got out of it. Main one I got is that if you spend too much time dwelling on what you've lost, you'll lose what you have, which is he spent the entire movie trying to get his sister's soul back. And at the end, his whole family just disappears.
Yeah, but they disappear in the way that a TV shuts off, like an old CRT.
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of that part. So that part doesn't quite fit into this reading.
No, it doesn't.
But I kind of wrote that before that part happened. I felt like something was going to happen. It felt like it was building up to something like that to me.
Well, I guess the way that I interpret that is, like, especially in the era that film was made, people kind of base their lives around television, you know? Like, they've got, where they eat, they've got a TV just sitting there, prominently in the scene, so I would guess that say like the symbolism of the TV and like the static and everything is actually important to that scene. And you know, a TV turning off has a kind of finality to it, even if you can turn it back on. So, you know, like the family disappearing in the manner of a TV turning off, I guess just broadly kind of symbolizes, you know, an idea of things ending. I don't think it's much more complex than that.
Yeah. And the other thing I came up with was that the idea of bringing someone back from the dead is nonsense. And that's why.
How so?
Well, because that was the whole point of the movie, him trying to bring his sister back from the dead. And there's all this weird shit happening. So I kind of took the idea of trying to bring someone that's gone back is just kind of daydreams.
Well, what if this movie actually symbolizes, like the artist that had committed suicide? Because if you look at the girl cat's mood throughout the film, like obviously she's missing her soul, so the emotional state makes sense. But she's completely flat and emotionally unresponsive, like catatonic throughout the whole thing. And that could symbolize like a state of depression rather than it just being, you know, exactly about the soul.
Yeah.
So she could even represent that artist that had committed suicide.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Another thought I just had now was maybe the boy cat just didn't get revived, and this was just what is going through his brain as it was shutting off.
Kind of a life on Mars situation.
Yeah. I think this is very much, or maybe not as much as Angel's Egg, but the same kind of thing where you're going to get different stuff depending on who you are and how you go into it. I don't think there's, like, a meaning, like, baked in like Angel's Egg probably had.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that there are meanings within the individual vignettes, but not necessarily, like, a cohesive meaning.
Yeah. Whereas Angel's Egg had it clearly was about something. Whether or not you get things other than that is fine, but it had a central pillar of meaning there. This really doesn't. Well,
I would say that it's probably important to recognize that this film is experimental, whereas I don't think Angel's Egg necessarily is.
Definitely.
Like, it's surrealist and everything, but it's quite... There's a sense they know exactly what they're doing, and it's not really experimental as such in Angel's Egg, but it's a really definite feeling of just trying whatever works in Catsup.
Yeah, I think I liked it. If you had to give it a numerical rating, though, what would you give it?
I'd probably give it like a 6.
I think I'd go with like a 8, maybe. There's something about it just did it for me. So
Yeah, I expect a lot of people will probably react to it like that. Like, I'm not quite indifferent to it. I like some stuff, but didn't really do much for me, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess the official, with the average there, the official Game Kiwi rating is a 7. Anyway, that was Cat Soup. I liked it. It was different.
Yeah, it was alright.
So let's wrap up here. Next week we will be having an episode where I am going to pitch to Cat Doter, who will be the co-host for season 2, 4 shows. I'm going to put a straw poll up online also, so that people can vote on which one they would like to see. We're not going to go like this won the poll, so that's what we're watching, but it'll factor into the discussion probably.
Well, you got to give the people what they want.
Yeah. The 4 shows that I'm going to pitch are The Tatami Galaxy, Mononoke, Kids on the Slope, and Haibane Renmei. The poll will be up at bit.ly/AKS02poll, all caps. So yeah, vote on which one you want to see. If you have like an argument towards or against one, post it in the comment for the YouTube version of this, or you can tweet it to us at the Game Kiwi. Or actually, you could post in the comments on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thegamekiwi. I'll be posting the links where you can get to this file there. So there's a perfect place for you to do that.
Well, I have one request if you're voting in the straw poll. You vote for the show that sucks the least. So keep that in mind. Don't vote for shows that suck.
I don't think that any of the shows I put up there suck. I've watched some Mononoke. That's the only one I've seen big chunks of. But I've heard these are all good. I'll probably watch the first episodes of each before the pitch episode, just so that I have an idea of what I am giving you pros and cons for.
Okay. Not sure whether or not I'll have a ton to say about them, but, you know.
And if you want to research stuff, you can. I gave you the names. You have the straw poll link, so you can look up the names.
Hey, man. I don't do research. That's the squares.
But anyway, that's that. We have some other stuff in the pipeline. In the next, month or two, you think? We want to start a monthly game podcast, being that we are Game Kiwi on YouTube, and we like playing games.
Yeah, we do. The plan is to not necessarily have like a rigid date that we'll be doing them.
But I would like to get one out a month.
Yeah, we'll be doing them whenever like interesting stuff comes out. We don't want to have to force the podcast out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, although I'm going to say we're going to get at least one a month out. We might get more.
Might get more.
We might have the episode might be a short little baby mini episode, but
like if we've only been playing one game that month, it'll probably be just like a review podcast, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's going to be freeform, loosey goosey.
Huzzah!
Yeah, it's still in the early planning stage right now. One of my friends is going to probably be a third co-host with us on that. So we don't really know what the structure is going to be, but it's coming.
It's coming.
We also have 2 podcasts that are still very much in flux as to when they're going to happen, and that will be on. One of them will be on all of Satoshi Kon's movies, and another will be on Hirokazu Koreeda's Still Walking and Afterlife. And I can't not tell you when those are coming, but hopefully before the end of summer.
Well, then why'd you tell him?
Huh?
Why'd you tell him they're coming? It's like a podcast dick tease.
Yeah, you gotta give him a little taste. Keep him being like, hey, where's that Koreeda podcast? I need that shit. I'm still walking towards that podcast. You need to give it to me before I'm in the afterlife.
Well done. Very well done.
I mean, I guess I am giving them the perfect blue balls, but...
No, I'm not participating in this. I'm abstaining from this.
I can't think of anything for the other Satoshi Kon movies.
Thank God.
Anyway, that's special 6 of Anime Kiwi. Join us next week for the pitch episode. Give us your thoughts and shit on all the stuff I just said. All the ways I
Don't
said you
give
can
a
give it
shit.
to me.
Don't give a shit though. Leave that part out.
You can if you want. It's fine. I won't tell Doter. Anyways, that's Anime Kiwi. I'm Mike.
I'm Cat Soup Dodo.
And as always, keep it anime.